Welcome. We'll start standing at the top of our mat, feet hip distance apart, strong through the legs, arms just relaxing down alongside the body. Feet parallel underneath the hips, finding the balance between the fronts of the feet and the backs of the feet. Strong legs, micro bend in the knees and extending up through your spine. Tailbone tucking under slightly, elongating the low back, engaging the lower abdomen. And let the shoulders relax down the back as you pause and breathe here. Deep breaths in and out through the nose if your sinuses are clear and if it's comfortable. Maybe observing where the breath is traveling through your belly, your ribs, your chest. Extending up through the crown of your head. And we'll inhale, reach the arms up towards the ceiling, and then exhale, sink those arms apart, back down to the hips. Palms to the chest, inhale, connect, reach up towards the ceiling, and then exhale, separate those palms wide out alongside the body, all the way back to the hips. And again, inhale, reach it up. Exhale, separating those palms back down to the hips, connecting hands at the chest. Now reversing, hands wide, reaching up, connect the palms, bring those down to the center of the chest. And again, inhale, wide, reaching up. Exhale, down the midline of the body, back to the chest. One more time, inhale, wide, reaching up. Exhale, hands back down to the center of the chest. And then we'll inhale, extend, reach it up. And then taking side stretch, we'll bring the hands together, leaning the arms towards the right while hips balance out, leaning towards the left. Inhale, back up to center, and then reverse. Arms leaning towards the left as hips balance and press towards the right. Inhale, back up to center. Exhale, swan diving down into that first forward fold. Take a moment to ease into that. Maybe you want to rock forward and back on the feet. And then we'll come down into a low squat, stretching out the feet, and then bringing that back up to that forward fold, rocking forward and back up onto the toes and the heels. Stretching in that forward fold. And then we will inhale, stand and reach it all the way up, tall mountain. Make sure those feet are parallel and aligned. We're going to do a chair flow. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, sit back into that chair. Maybe keeping the arms extended. Inhale, extend and reach back up. Exhale, sitting back into that chair. If it feels better to bring hands to the chest, to prayer position, you can. A few more times flowing up and down with the breath here, in and out of chair pose. And then one more time as you sit back into chair. This time we're going to pause and hold here. Feel the strength of the legs. If you want more engagement without shifting the knees any closer, imagine as though you are. And then we'll release that gently into forward fold. Maybe sway that around a couple times, releasing any tension lingering in the legs and the back there. And then we'll step the right foot back, find high lunge on the left side. Bringing the torso up with the inhale, we'll sweep the arms up towards the ceiling. Pausing there, sinking the hips a little bit deeper. Maybe a little more weight into that bent front left knee, but keeping the knee stacked above the ankle, not past the toes. And then we're going to straighten that front left leg. Square those hips up to the front of the mat, sinking back into that high lunge. We'll bring the hands down to the chest. And then we will go ahead and place the hands down, framing that front foot. Right palm to the inside of the left leg. Inhale, twist and reach up towards the left. Wiggle those left fingertips. Lots of energy through that left arm. Deep, full breath. And with the exhale, we'll release that hand down, framing again that front left foot. And then we're going to bring the hands to prayer position at the chest. And then see if we can shift up onto just that left leg, straightening the right leg straight back behind us into our warrior 3 legs. Pausing there a moment, strong right leg, flexing that right foot straight back towards that back wall. And then we'll see if we can stand it up, keeping the right leg lifted, bringing the knee straight forward from that hip. Hug that into the chest for a moment, little hip stretch. And then we'll move into tree pose from there, bringing that right foot either to the floor, heel to the ankle, underneath the knee, inside of the calf, or high above that knee to the inside of the thigh. Hands at prayer position, or perhaps extending up towards the sky, creating tree branches in our pose. Standing in tree pose, extending up towards the ceiling. Tuck that tailbone long through the spine. We'll bring hands back to the chest and then into our standing figure 4. So shifting that right ankle on top above the left knee. Perhaps sitting back, bending that left knee a little bit deeper. Stretching through that outer right hip. And then we'll stand it up. See if we can shift back through warrior 3 with hands at the chest. And then if you can gently release those right toes back to that high lunge. From there, we'll inhale, sweep the arms up towards the ceiling. And exhale, we're going to release that right knee all the way down to the mat. Sinking a little deeper into the hips, we'll start a flow. So we're going to bend more into that front knee, really lower those hips, and then extend back over the right knee. Extend the left leg, extend those left toes, folding over that leg. And we'll continue to flow here. So we're finding inhale, stretching through the front of the right hip. And then we are stretching through that left hamstring as we come forward, our modified pyramid pose. A few more times here, easing into those hips, maybe coming in a little deeper, but if hips are feeling very fatigued, we can always just slowly back our way back out to downward dog or child's pose. Now we're going to pause in that low lunge, crescent lunge, and then interlace the fingers and reach those over towards that bent leg, towards the left wall. Side stretch to that right side, inhale, come back up. We'll release those hands back to the mat, lift that right knee back up from the floor, and then we're going to step back to our plank pose. Back to downward facing dog, pressing through the palms or pulling back through the hips. Couple of breaths here. Maybe shift the weight side to side, work out the feet a little bit. Then when you're ready, we're going to inhale, shift forward to full plank. Gently tap the knees down, engaging the core next. Lift those back up, press back to downward facing dog. Then we'll inhale, right leg up and back towards the ceiling. Point and flex through that foot a few times. Maybe rotate the foot around in one direction and in the opposite direction. And then we're going to shift forward to plank. Maybe tap that right knee to the back of that right tricep. Maybe straighten that right leg out to the side. Inhale, back up. And then this time we'll go ahead and step that foot up between the hands, stepping up to forward fold. Maybe folding deeply on the exhale. As you inhale, we'll stand and reach it all the way up towards the ceiling. And then bring those hands down the center of the body to the middle of the chest. We're going to bring right knee up, straight up from the right hip, and maybe straighten that leg out in front of you. Flexing that right foot. And then we'll bend the knee. Go ahead and step that down. We'll inhale, stretch and reach it up, folding back into our forward fold. Maybe sway it around a few times here. Shake out the head. Inhale, sweep and reach it all the way back up. Exhale, sitting back into our chair. Inhale up. Exhale back into the chair, easing into that chair pose once again. A few more times here. And then we'll pause and hold the next time we come down into chair. Go ahead and fold that forward, stepping the left foot back, so back through that high lunge on the right. And we'll inhale, sweep and reach those arms up towards the ceiling once again, high lunge. Maybe easing into those hips a little bit more, deepening the bend in that front left knee, maybe paralleling that right thigh to the floor. Inhale, reach up, straightening the right leg. Exhale, sinking a little deeper, back to that bent knee, and we'll flow there a few times. And then we will bend back into that knee, hands to the chest, leaning it forward, engaging that glute a bit more. Go ahead and place the left hand to the inside of the right foot, and then inhale, twisting up to the right, reaching those right fingertips towards the ceiling. A few breaths there. One more deep breath in. And as you exhale, release that hand back down to the mat. And then we are going to really place that right foot firmly into the floor. Strong right leg as we step up to our warrior three. Legs now on that right side. Left leg coming straight back from the left hip. Flexing through that foot. Hands maybe remain at prayer position at the chest. And then we will inhale, see if we can keep the left leg lifted. Sweep that forward, straight up from the hip. Take a moment to hug that knee into your chest. Finding that balance, finding that focal point, and then we'll shift that into our tree pose. Left leg bending, placing that foot, maybe toes to the floor, heel to the ankle, maybe to the inside of the calf or shin, or maybe to the inside of that right thigh. Press foot and leg firmly into each other. Feel the strength in that leg and maybe growing tree branches up towards the ceiling. Bring hands back to the chest. We'll shift that into our standing figure four. Left ankle on top of the right thigh. Start sitting back as though you're sitting into a one-legged chair there. Hands at the chest, maybe even forearms come down to rest across that inner left leg. Across the shin. Finding our focal point helps with the balance. Then we'll stand it up, keep that leg floating, see if we can go ahead and shift that back through our warrior three. And then we will gently release those left toes back down to the mat. Fingertips to the floor. We'll release that left knee down. Inhale up to our low lunge, our crescent lunge. Maybe sink those hips a little deeper, and then we'll go through that flow. Shifting the weight back over the left knee, straightening the right leg. Inhale to reach up. Exhale to press that back. Modified pyramid, stretching through that right hamstring. Torso folding over the leg as much as feels good there. Maybe just a few more flows here. And then we're going to shift back forward to that low lunge. Inhale, reach it up, sinking those hips maybe a little deeper, and then hinging, reaching the fingertips over towards the right side. Side body stretch to the left side. And then When you're ready, we'll inhale, straighten that back up towards the ceiling. Release those hands back down to the mat. See if you can lift that left knee, step that up to our forward fold. Then we're going to step the foot back, come back through our plank, and then back to downward facing dog. Maybe pressing those heels into or towards the floor. We'll inhale, left leg up and back to the ceiling, pointing and flexing or rolling that foot around in each direction. And then we'll shift that forward into our plank. See if we can tap or hold that left knee to the outside of the left tricep. Maybe we can straighten that leg out. Inhale, stretch and reach it back up. And then step that foot up between the hands. Stepping it forward into forward fold. On the exhale, maybe fold a little deeper. Inhale, we'll stand and reach it all the way up to the ceiling. Hands back down the midline to the center of the chest. And then we'll bring the left leg straight out from the left hip, maybe flexing that foot in front. We'll release that down to the floor. Inhale, stand and reach it all the way up into our tall mountain pose. And then we'll gently fold down into our forward fold. Maybe take a moment to shift it around a little bit here. Maybe you want to sway the torso side to side. Maybe rock the head around. And then we're going to bring the feet into touch, knees into touch. We're going to lower into a low squat, paralleling the thighs to the floor, seeing if we can find balance on just the toes, the pads of the feet there. Hands resting at the chest. And then we'll release those knees down, untuck the toes, sit back onto the heels. You can remain here if this feels best, or you can sit up onto a block between those feet. Otherwise, we're going to come into hero pose, widening the feet all the way out to the edges of the hips, right alongside the glutes. Perhaps sitting those glutes all the way to the mat, or again, onto a block if that feels best. And then you can absolutely stay where you're at or come out at any point that feels best, perhaps to child's pose. Otherwise, we're going to tip back through the torso, bring those hands back behind the shoulders. Keeping the chest lifted, straight line from hips to head, and then maybe press into those shins, those tops of feet, lifting the hips up away from the floor for a moment, a little quad stretch. And then we're going to lower down onto the forearms. We're going to find a modified fish pose, excuse me. So fish pose, maybe we walk the forearms a little bit closer underneath the glutes next. And then maybe start to tip the back of the head until it lightly touches the crown of the head on the earth. Deep chest opener while stretching intensely through the front of those thighs. Let an inhale slowly bring you back out, bringing the head back up. Use the strength of the arms to press back up. And then we're going to go ahead and release out of this right down into our child's pose. A few calming, relaxing breaths here. Resting in child's pose, we'll extend those arms out nice and long. Press into the palms, and then we're going to bend at the elbows, connect the palms, reach the thumbs down the back of the head for a moment. Gentle upper back stretch. Then we're going to release that down, come into dolphin or supported headstand next. So first for dolphin, we'll interlace the fingers, maybe even press palms together. Shoulders or elbows are shoulder distance apart, and then lifting up into that inverted V, just like downward facing dog. At any point this becomes too much, as we go through this, you can just release and rest in child's pose. Otherwise, we're going to bring the palms apart, tuck the back of the head into the palms, shift everything forward, and then walk the toes up, and then maybe start to lift the feet up, starting with bent knees. Maybe start to lift the knees up towards the ceiling, and then maybe eventually the legs extending all the way up to the ceiling, feet extending up. If you're new to supported headstand, perhaps you just stay here, continue to play with your balance. Otherwise, we're going to turn this into eagle legs. We'll wrap the right knee around the left, twisting those ankles as close together as we can or around each other, and then maybe even add a twist, twisting that right knee towards the left side. So this is fairly advanced, so stop where you're at. We'll unwind the legs and then eagle legs to the opposite side. Left knee wraps around the right, and then once you find stability, maybe twisting slightly towards the right side. We will unwind, slowly release that back down, and then down straight to child's pose. A few relaxing breaths here. Extending out through those arms, we'll inhale forward to modified plank, lowering all the way to the mat. Let your cheek come down to rest. Let your hands come back alongside your hips. Let the fronts of the shoulders melt into the mat for a moment. Then we're going to move into cobra pose next. So we'll tuck the tailbone, press the pelvis firmly into the floor, bring the palms underneath the shoulders, elbows hugging in tight. Maybe we just use the strength of the back to lift up the head, the chest, or maybe we also press into the arms, but keeping the fronts of legs and the tip of the pelvis connected to the mat at all times, extending up, lifting up from the floor, slide the shoulders down the back, and then we'll lower it back down. Release those hands back alongside your hips, opposite cheek to the mat to rest. Breathing here, letting everything reverse, relax all that tension. And then we're going to see if a bow pose feels like a good option. We're going to start by first taking a quad stretch through that left leg, squeeze the foot in towards the glute, palm over the top of the foot, and then switch to the other side, right heel, firmly pressing into the glute. And then if possible, both hands around the tops of the feet. And then pressing again that tailbone down, press that pelvis into the mat as you press the tops of the feet into the hands, arms extending back, lifting the torso up from the floor. And then deep breaths there, perhaps rocking with the breath, engaging those muscles of the legs, and then we'll slowly, with an exhale, release that all the way back down. Maybe let big toes turn into touch and heels drop wide, cheek to the mat, hands back alongside those hips. We're going to take the hands back under the shoulders. This time we'll press gently back up through that modified plank and all the way back to our child's pose. Pausing here for a few breaths to release any tension lingering in the back. And then we'll inhale, slowly roll ourselves all the way up to seated. And then from seated, we're going to drop the hips to the side, bringing our legs out in front. And then we're going to gently lower all the way down onto our back. Feel free to hug the knees initially or stretch out through the arms. If you're hugging the knees, maybe you want to rock it side to side a few times. And then we're going to release the feet down, hip distance apart, moving into bridge next. So palms down alongside the hips, gently rolling, lifting the pelvis, lifting the legs, the spine up from the mat. Maybe even interlace those hands behind the back, walking the shoulders a little closer. And then if inverting this is within your range, we're going to flip those feet over, bringing the knees down alongside the ears. Hands are going to support you by bending at the elbows, pressing those palms into the low back. And most important is protecting your neck, so keeping your gaze up towards the ceiling. So you may want to pause the video to review this and then attempt. If there's room, you can start to move into plow, maybe straightening the legs, tapping them down towards the earth over the head. And then we're going to gently come back out. Flip the feet, see if you can come back through bridge, palms back alongside the hips, and then lowering the spine all the way down. And then again, we will hug those knees into the chest. Maybe rock that side to side. And then we're just going to turn that into our spinal twist from there. So when you're ready, we're going to extend the arms straight out from the shoulders or bent at the elbows, cactus arms. Rock those knees over to the right side and let them come down to rest. If it feels good, let your chin roll open towards that left shoulder, bringing that twist all the way up into the neck. We're just going to rest and breathe here, preparing the body for relaxation. Let the backs of the shoulders melt down into the floor. Make any adjustments that make this feel the most comfortable to you at this moment. And then we'll gently bring the knees, bring the chin back up. Feel free to hug the knees, rock it around before you reverse. Eventually letting the legs rock over to the left side and down to rest. And then perhaps the chin rolling open towards that right shoulder, completing that twist up the entire spine. And again, we will just relax and breathe here for a few moments. Let those shoulders melt back and down into the floor. And then we will slowly bring the knees, bring the chin back up. Again, feel free to hug the knees, to rock it side to side a couple of times. When you're ready, we're going to release into our supine butterfly pose, bent knees, opening out wide, soles of feet sliding into touch, and then hands, arms resting wherever they feel most comfortable at this moment. Letting gravity do the work here. If at any point it's too much for your hips at this time, you can always bring those knees back up early. And we'll bring the knees back up. Coming into final relaxation next, extend the heels out to the corners of the mat, hands out alongside the hips. I relax my lower body, feet, legs, and hips. My feet, legs, and hips are completely relaxed. I relax my hands, arms, and back. My hands, arms, and back are completely relaxed. I relax my abdomen, ribs, and chest. My abdomen, ribs, and chest are completely relaxed. I allow my entire body to fully relax. My entire body is completely and fully relaxed. And then I'm going to bring in gentle movements, wiggling or stretching, maybe a full body stretch or maybe a hug of those knees to the chest. Taking your time, eventually rock yourself over to your side, pausing and resting there for a moment or two, a few breaths. And eventually, when that feels complete, you can start to press yourself back up to whatever seated position feels most comfortable to you at this moment. Once you find that position, let the hands, the arms find a place to settle and rest for a moment or two. And then we'll connect the palms together at the center of the chest. Thank you so much for joining me. It is always my honor to teach you. Namaste.